Spotting the red flags in the early stages of dating can save you a lot of time and energy. In this video, we'll go over 14 red flags to look out for when you are newly dating someone. If someone is just showing a red flag or two, it's not necessarily a disaster. Sometimes you can give people the benefit of the doubt, but some red flags are more important to look out for than others, and we will get into that now. So the first red flag is things move too fast. In unhealthy relationship dynamics, it's very, very common that the person who doesn't have great intentions don't really want you to see who they are before you have already committed. So they'll really push for a fast pace in the relationship. They'll say, I love you really quickly. They'll want to hang out each and every day. They will love bomb you, and I'll make another video on love bombing explaining what that is, but basically it is when someone is showing an extreme amount of attention and affection in the beginning stages of a relationship, and the person is doing this to get you attached real quick. So when things move too fast, when the person wants to move in together after 1 week, after 2 weeks, even after a month, when the person wants you to meet their family and their kids, and that is usually a red flag. Because if you've met your person and this is the right thing, this is the right relationship, then what's the harm in taking it a little bit slower? Is the person gonna slip away? That's sometimes the fear, right? But if it's the right person, they won't. If it's a healthy person who wants a healthy relationship, they'll be absolutely fine with a normal pace of dating. Number two is if someone is not really respecting your boundaries from the get-go, meaning pushing you to do things that you don't really feel comfortable doing on the dates. If they completely override your boundaries, if you set a boundary, or if they make fun of any boundaries you may have when you share about yourself, that is not a good sign. Remember, in the first few weeks, months of dating, the person is putting their best foot forward. So they're trying to be their best selves. So if this is their best selves, then you've got problems down the line, and the person will not be very good at accepting a no or accepting a boundary. So a really good test to see if someone is good at respecting boundaries is telling them no to something. How do they react? Are they respectful of your no, or will they try to push you to do it anyway? Sign number 3. Disrespecting their exes. This is a pretty common one. So if you're dating someone who immediately starts trashing their exes, all of their exes were crazy, they were psychopaths, there was something wrong with them, it was completely and 100% their fault that the relationship ended, that's really an indicator to you that you're talking to someone who has very little self-awareness and who's probably lying to you, because when is it ever only one person's fault if you're in a healthy relationship and it doesn't work out? Never, right? It takes two to tango in healthy relationships. So you know that if a person speaks like that about their ex, they'll eventually speak like that about you if it doesn't work out between the two of you, and you will now become the crazy ex. Also, why does this person not have a good relationship with their exes? I'm not saying you should be best friends with your ex and check in on each other every week. I just mean you can be cordial. Most people who end healthy relationships, they're still friendly, not friends, but friendly with their exes. There's no need for hate. Sign number 4 is inconsistent communication, which means hot and cold behavior. One day they are super communicative, into you, they're messaging back immediately. The next day it'll take them 5 hours to message back. They may not even pick up your call. They'll call you back the next day. This inconsistency is a sign that there could be a trauma bond on the way, which means intermittent reinforcement, and this can really get you hooked, so you got to be aware. Sign number 5 is if the person shows a lack of interest in you, the person only wants to talk about themselves, doesn't ask any questions about you, doesn't really show any interest in your values or your life story, and it's just kind of there to feed their own ego and have you be the audience. I mean, sometimes this can happen when a person is very nervous, that they'll just talk. I mean, I definitely have seen that happen, that with clients when they're dating someone and the person is genuinely a good person, but they're very nervous. So they end up just sitting and talking about themselves for the whole date. It can happen, so you can give someone the benefit of a doubt here, but if it's something that continues over a longer period of time of dating, let's say a couple of months, then you're dealing with someone who's very self-involved and who is not really available for a true connection with someone else. Sign number 6, if the person is acting overly jealous, and in the beginning, a very jealous person will probably try and hide it, but you'll still notice that they don't like it when you talk about maybe even your friends, or especially if you talk about people you've been with, or if there's a guy at the bar staring at you, the person gets jealous and says something to the guy, or whatever, something similar to that. It's not really good, because jealousy is a normal feeling and we all feel it, but it's all about how you handle the jealousy. Saying, oh my God, it makes me a little bit jealous to hear that you have been married before, because I imagine that you've had a great relationship with that person, at least for a couple of years, and that's intimidating to me. That's okay, that's a normal feeling. But then acting out and saying, for example, you should block your ex, or I don't think you should be talking to your ex at all. And again, I mean friendly, not friends. I think it's fair not to want someone you're with to be really close friends with an ex, but friendly should be fine. Or for example, insisting on sharing passwords to your phone really early on, so they can potentially be checking your phone, which they probably will if they're the very jealous type and there's something off there. Sign number 7 is dishonesty, and this is kind of an obvious one. In the beginning, you won't really know if they're lying about many things because you don't really know them. So unless you have some kind of reality testing where you can check if what they're saying is actually true and matches the reality of the life experience they've had through maybe their friends, or if you have friends in common, it's easier. But if it's someone you met online and you know nothing about them, then it's really difficult to know when they're lying in the beginning. But maybe you'll catch them in small little white lies. Sign number 8, frequent criticism. You don't want to be with someone who gives you backhanded compliments like, oh, you'd be so much prettier if you put on makeup every morning, or you'd be so much prettier if you smiled more. And it's a sign of the person being insecure and taking that insecurity and inferiority out on you. Someone who nitpicks or undermines your confidence, it's only going to get worse with time, so you don't want that. Sign number 10, excessive focus on physical appearance. It's okay to be attracted to each other. It's okay to appreciate each other's beauty and body and all of that stuff. It's completely fine, but it shouldn't be the only thing that's in focus, because that won't last. The person should also be interested in your values, in your interests, in who you are as a person, your personality, things you have to say, stories you have to share. And if that's not really the case and the only thing that they're hyper-focused on is your looks, then they're not really seeing you and they're not really falling in love with you. They're falling in love with a beautiful picture and then probably a fantasy idealized version of who they want you to be. It's also kind of an indicator that someone is a very shallow person. And if you're in it for the long haul, if you're looking for a long-term relationship, potentially a marriage, then you don't want to be with someone who's so shallow. You want to be with someone who will accept you as you age, just as they will accept themselves as they inevitably get older and lose some of their youthfulness and looks. Sign number 11, refusal to take responsibility. If someone is really having a hard time taking accountability for their own life and their own mistakes, that's a huge red flag. If it was everyone else's fault, if it was the family's fault, the school's fault, the friend's fault, the ex's fault, nothing is ever their fault. You're dealing with a person who is very emotionally immature and who's probably not going to grow, because you know what's going to happen in a relationship with you? Everything's going to be your fault. It's never going to be their fault. It's always going to be your fault. And you really can't work with someone like that. And you certainly can't build a healthy relationship. Sign number 12. If someone's being overly controlling, again, it's pretty difficult to detect early on, but there can be small signs, like they'll frown when you say you're going to go hang out with friends, or they're going to make a little comment about something that you wear, like, are you really going to wear that? Or why do you hang out with these people? Like, they're beneath you. Or pick up on it and just note it down. It's not a great sign. Sign number 13, and this one is really important. Poor treatment of others. If it was a person with bad intentions, they would probably treat you really well in the beginning of the relationship, but you can witness how they treat people beneath them. Please note that I put this in quotation, but that they consider to be beneath them. So it could be the taxi driver, it could be the waiter. Notice how they talk to them, and if they're incredibly rude and disrespectful, because yes, they're nice to you right now, but once they devalue you at some point, they'll be talking like that to you. You need to be with someone who's showing respect for people, who is kind to people, because then they'll most likely also be very kind to you and show you respect. Sign number 14, unresolved anger and past trauma. So past trauma, we all kind of have it. So it's not necessarily the biggest red flag ever, but it is an indicator that the person probably is damaged to some degree and they've got some stuff to work on. So if someone is already in therapy, already working on themselves, that's okay. But if they seem to have a lot of resentment about the past, a lot of unresolved anger or bitter comments about the past or things that happened to them, it sounds like someone who's not really working through it and who doesn't really know how to deal with that. And that will eventually be taken out on you. So what are you supposed to do if you see some of these red flags early on in dating? Well, first of all, always listen to your gut. It's a little bit tricky because if you yourself have trauma, you're going to feel very comfortable within a toxic dynamic. So your gut is going to tell you this feels familiar, this feels like home, this feels like love. But you got to have some common sense in there as well. You know, so it's a combination of listen to your gut and at the same time also view this from the outside looking in. Does this sound like a healthy person? If you were just to read about what this person did in like a storybook or a magazine or something, would you think that, oh, this is a great person or not? Try and have a conversation. If it is a healthy person, they'll be happy to have a conversation with you and work things out. If it's not, they'll get really defensive and blame you for everything. Seek a pattern. So see if there's a pattern here. Are there many, many red flags, or is it just 1 or 2 or 3 red flags and maybe they're not really that dominant or that much of a big deal? You want to see consistent patterns here, and that's why it's good to take it slow, because you won't be able to see those consistent patterns until you've dated the person for a while. Take your time, especially if you're seeing red flags. Date for a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months before you even get serious. This only benefits you, especially if you see that there is something a little bit off, or there potentially could be something a little bit off here. Early dating is meant for you to get to know somebody, and all of these red flags, they can potentially grow into real big problems once you get committed and move in together and have children together and have a life together. So don't ignore them. Don't ignore them. Walk into a relationship with your eyes open. Don't expect the person to be perfect, but at least expect them to be willing to work on themselves and communicate about their shortcomings. I hope this video was helpful. If you liked it, please like the video and subscribe to my channel, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.